Today we're diving into some of the coolest indies that might have slipped under your radar. We've got a list of 30 absolute bangers that released in the last year or so. These are the kind of games that remind you why you got into gaming in the first place. And some of these have some of the freshest mechanics I've seen in a while. So yeah, let's get into the good stuff. Absolum. To be honest, this one caught me off guard. It's a hand-drawn beat-em-up roguelite, which sounds like a weird combination on paper. Streets of Rage meets Hades? Kind of. But the execution is what makes it special. The art style is raw, gritty, almost sketchy, like someone drew the whole thing with charcoal on rough paper. It gives the world this dirty, lived-in texture that fits the brutal combat perfectly. You're playing as this warrior in a dying world, and you're fighting through hordes of monsters, each run offering different upgrades, different paths, and different challenges. And the combat is weighty, like you feel every punch, every block, every impact. There's also a parry system that rewards perfect timing, and when you nail it, you get this satisfying slowdown effect that makes you feel like an absolute god. What I like about this one is the pacing. You know, beat-em-ups can get repetitive fast, but the roguelite structure in this game keeps things fresh. You're unlocking new abilities, new characters, new enemy types across runs, and the bosses are huge multi-phase encounters that demand you actually learn their patterns. It's from some of the same team behind Dead Cells, I think, so there's definitely that DNA in there. Tight controls, high skill ceiling, but accessible enough that you don't need to be a pro to enjoy it. If you like games that demand a little bit of mastery but reward you generously for it, Absolum is worth your time. Baby steps.
Oh!
Deep breath. You're okay. You're with Jim?
I'm Jim.
No, I'm Jim.
Yeah, no, you're Jim.
Just relax. Nothing to be ashamed of. Everybody falls. Let's get you on your feet.
I'm good.
What's your name, son?
I'm Nate.
Look, I need to be honest about this one. This is a walking simulator, but not in the artsy game where you just listen to voiceovers way. No, this is a literal walking simulator. You control each step, each foot individually, with physics. You are physically controlling a grown man in a onesie trying to put one foot in front of the other. And it is hilarious, it's frustrating, it's weirdly touching, and it's from the same team that made Getting Over It and Ape Out, so you already know they're not playing fair. And this time, you're playing as Nate, this unemployed guy with nothing going for him, and somehow he discovers he has the power to walk. And that's it, that's the premise. And you're hiking up this giant mountain, placing each footstep yourself, trying not to fall over, trying not to slide down a hill, trying not to just absolutely eat dirt because you leaned too far forward. The world is shrouded in this mist, and the music builds dynamically as you move. They say it's made up of hundreds of different beats and vibes that layer on top of each other depending on where you are and what you're doing. So when you're making progress, it feels triumphant. When you're falling on your face for the 10th time, the music reflects that too. And by the way, there's a fully simulated onesie soilage system. The onesie gets dirty as you play, and the hats are non-collectible, which is just the developers trolling completionists. It's the kind of joyful, stupid, genuinely clever game that reminds you why indie games exist. Big hops. There is something extremely satisfying about a physics system that actually lets you feel the weight of your character. You are a little green frog who just wants to bounce his way across a series of islands to reach a city. The gameplay is all about momentum and using your powerful legs to launch yourself into the air. It feels like a mix of a classic 3D platformer and a momentum-based racing game. And honestly, you will spend hours just trying to master the perfect arc for your big jumps. The truth is that the world is incredibly colorful and looks like a cartoon come to life. You have to collect flies and other shiny items to unlock new areas of the floating map. Meanwhile, you will encounter weird NPCs who challenge you to races or ask you to fetch high items. The thing is that the controls are super simple, but the skill ceiling is actually pretty high. You are basically just a small creature in a big world trying to see what is over the next hill. In other words, it is a low-stress experience that focuses on the pure joy of movement. You should definitely try to beat the developer's gold times on each level for a real challenge. Anyway, this is a great palate cleanser if you have been playing too many dark and gritty games. Bionic Bay. Imagine a puzzle platformer where your main mechanic is swapping your body with nearby machines to work through a dark, industrial world full of traps that will absolutely punish you for being sloppy. That's Bionic Bay. And the whole thing is built around momentum and timing in a way that makes every clean run feel genuinely earned. The art direction is striking too, pulling this high contrast black and orange look that makes every frame feel intentional and sharp. And believe it or not, the level design keeps layering new rules on top of each other, so just when you've settled into a comfortable rhythm, the game throws a wrench into it. The difficulty here is real, meaning you will grind a section multiple times, but it never tips over into the kind of unfair that makes you want to close the app entirely. Also though, the body swapping mechanic has way more depth than it sounds on paper because the puzzles start using it in combinations you genuinely won't see coming. If you like your platformers to feel like a puzzle game wearing a speedrunner's outfit, Bionic Bay is exactly that. Blueprints. Blueprints is the one that made me feel like a genius and also made me feel like an idiot, and sometimes both in the same session. It's a first-person puzzle roguelike developed by Dogubomb. And what's great is that there's no combat in this game. Blueprints is a game where you're essentially designing the floor plan of a shifting mansion called Mount Holly as you explore it. Every door you open, you're choosing which room comes next. And the rooms reset every day. So you're drafting your path through this manner, deciding which rooms to add to the floor plan, managing resources, trying to figure out how to reach this mysterious room. And every room has its own challenge, its own secret, its own way of either helping you or completely screwing you over. The thing that makes it special is that you're not just solving puzzles inside the rooms. The entire structure is the puzzle. You're making decisions that affect what you'll have access to later. You're trying to remember which rooms worked, which ones didn't, which combinations unlocked something you needed. And when you finally make it to a new area, when you figure out a sequence that actually works, it feels incredible. It's from Raw Fury, who have a track record of publishing weird, wonderful stuff. And it's on PS Plus Extra, which is just a gift, honestly. If you like smart, stylish games that reward you for paying attention, this one's for you. Buy Sweet Carole. This one is a trip because on the surface it looks like a lost Disney movie from the 90s. Hand-drawn animation, that soft, warm aesthetic, characters that feel like they belong in a classic fairy tale. But then you actually start playing and you realize real quick that something is deeply wrong, because this is a horror game, straight up. It's set in early 20th century England. You're playing as this girl named Lana searching for her missing friend Carole, and your path leads you through this orphanage and eventually into this twisted kingdom. And that kingdom, ruled by an owl, and swarms of these things called tar bunnies that will absolutely murder you. The contrast is what makes it stick with you. You're exploring these beautifully animated environments and then suddenly you're sneaking around trying not to get caught, solving puzzles, and dealing with enemies that feel ripped out of a nightmare. There's even a mechanic where you transform into a rabbit to escape threats, which sounds cute until you're being hunted. It's from the creator of the Remothered series, so the guy knows horror. But this isn't just jump scares, it's atmospheric dread wrapped in this gorgeous, nostalgic art style that makes the horror hit so much harder. Because you weren't expecting it. That's the brilliance of it. Cairn.
All I ever wanted was to touch eternity for an instant.
As we all know, climbing in most games is usually just holding a stick up, but Cairn makes you sweat over every single finger placement. You play as a climber named Ava who is trying to conquer a mountain that basically wants her dead. Honestly, it feels more like a puzzle game where the pieces are your own limbs and the board is a vertical cliff. The physics are so precise that you will find yourself holding your breath during a tricky reach. And yeah, the survival mechanics mean you have to manage your stamina and water while dangling over a massive drop. The thing is, the game does not hold your hand or give you magic checkpoints every 5 feet. You really start to feel the isolation of the climb because the sound design is just the wind and your own heavy breathing. What is wild is how much personality they crammed into a game that is mostly about rocks. Look, you are going to fall a lot, and it will hurt your soul more than your health bar. Still, the feeling of finally reaching a ledge to set up your tent is better than beating most boss fights. Plus, the art style is super clean and makes the harsh environment look weirdly inviting, meaning you will probably spend half your time in photo mode instead of actually climbing. This one is a test of patience that rewards you with views that are actually worth the effort. On top of that, the narrative is told through small notes and environmental clues rather than long cutscenes. So yeah, if you want something that treats movement like a high-stakes chess match, this is it. I think my palms are still sweating just talking about that final peak. Constance. Imagine a world where your main weapon is a paintbrush and your creativity is the only thing keeping you from a total mental breakdown. You play as an artist named Constance who is exploring a decaying inner world that represents her own mind and struggles. This is a hand-drawn Metroidvania where you gain new abilities by learning different painting techniques as you explore. For example, you can turn into a literal stroke of paint to dash through solid walls or fly across gaps. The combat is very fast, and you have to switch between different colors to exploit the weaknesses of the enemies. Now the animations are some of the smoothest I have seen in an indie game lately, and it makes the platforming feel great. You will find hidden secrets tucked away in every corner of the map, which means you really have to pay attention to the background art. The thing is that the game deals with some heavy themes like burnout and the pressure of being a creator. On top of that, you have a stamina bar that you have to manage while using your special brush moves. But seriously, the way the world transforms around you as you progress is honestly one of the coolest things about the game. You are basically trying to bring color back to a world that has gone gray and lifeless because of the protagonist's internal conflict. The level design is very clever, and it forces you to think outside the box to reach the next area. Plus, you can customize your playstyle with different charms and brush upgrades that you find along the way. Like when you get the ability to create platforms out of thin air, it completely changes how you approach the older zones. It feels like a mix of Hollow Knight and some of the classic art-focused platformers from back in the day. So then you should be prepared for some tough platforming challenges that will test your patience and your precision. At the end of the day, this is a beautiful and meaningful journey that every fan of the genre needs to experience. Crow Country. Crow Country is the indie darling that basically one of the best horror games that has been flying under the radar for everyone since it was launched. It captures that 90s survival horror magic so perfectly it feels like a lost PS1 disc you found in the back of a dusty cabinet. Think of it like the original Resident Evil, but if it actually had a soul and a sense of humor. You're exploring this abandoned theme park in 1990, looking for the guy who owned the place, and the whole thing looks like a creepy, playable toy box. It's got these chunky, low-poly characters that honestly shouldn't be scary, but because of the lighting and the music, they absolutely are. The atmosphere is just thick with this weird, uncanny dread. I mean, the way the camera follows you at these slightly off-kilter angles makes every corner feel like a potential trap. Because you're constantly backtracking through these dense, detailed areas, you really get to know the layout of the park. It's got that specific kind of Metroidvania flow where finding a bronze key feels like the biggest win of your life. The puzzles are actually a massive highlight here. They aren't just obscure nonsense, they're genuinely clever and force you to look at your surroundings. And the combat is this interesting mix of retro and modern. You have to stand still to aim, which gives you that classic feeling of vulnerability when a monster is shambling toward you. But they added a rotatable camera, which is a total game changer for navigation. Honestly, it's just a joyful video game project that could only come out of an indie studio that really loves the genre. It doesn't need hyper-realistic blood or jump scares to get under your skin. The vibe alone does all the heavy lifting. If you're tired of the AAA bloat and just want a compact, perfectly paced horror experience, Crow Country is it. It's a game that's very tempting to take for granted because of the art style, but once you're in it, it's hard to put down. Disco Elysium. So Disco Elysium is basically one of the games that ruined other RPGs for me because it subverts every single expectation you have for the genre. You aren't some soldier or hero with a sword or a space marine or a powerful wizard. You're a middle-aged alcoholic detective who woke up with such a bad hangover that he literally forgot his own name and how the world works. It sounds like a joke, but it's actually the setup for the most intricate writing in the medium. The thing about this game is that the combat isn't physical. It's all happening inside your own fractured psyche. Your skills, like logic, volition, or even your literal gut feeling, are actual characters that talk to you. They argue with each other. Sometimes your inland empire tells you to talk to a corpse, and sometimes your half-light tells you to just punch a mailbox for no reason. It gives off this vibe of a total mental breakdown that you're trying to pilot like a vehicle. I mean, the level of depth in the dialogue is just insane. You can try to be a hardcore communist, a hustle-grind capitalist, or just a sorry cop who apologizes for existing. Every choice feels like it's chipping away at who this man is going to become. It's got that specific kind of dark humor where you're laughing at how pathetic things are, but then 5 minutes later it hits you with a line about loss that feels like a punch to the chest. So you're navigating this gray, beautiful, watercolor world of Revachol, trying to solve a murder while your own brain is actively sabotaging you, which is why it works. It doesn't need a combat system because trying to win an argument with your own subconscious is more tense than any boss fight. Honestly, I've never seen a game trust the player this much to just read and think. It's one of those just one more conversation type of situations. The world building is dense, the political themes are heavy, but it never feels like a lecture. It feels like life. Messy, confusing, and incredibly human. Coming in next, we have Dispatch.
You want to get people hurt? Get people killed?
A real hero puts their ass on the line.
Here's the thing. It's a superhero mystery game, but it's not about punching villains or saving the city from some giant laser. It's about the aftermath. You're not playing a superhero. You're playing someone who works at a dispatch center for superheroes. You're the person on the radio, the one coordinating the response, the one making the calls that actually save lives. It's from some of the writers behind the Telltale games, so the dialogue system is deep, the choices matter, and the characters feel like real people with real problems. You're investigating a mystery. Something went wrong on a mission, a hero is missing, and you have to piece together what happened by talking to people, examining evidence, and making tough calls. The writing is also sharp. It's funny when it needs to be, tense when it matters, and surprisingly emotional in places. There's no punching, no superpowers. Just good old-fashioned detective work with a superhero coat of paint, which is such a fresh take, right? Everyone does the what if superheroes were dark and gritty thing, but nobody does what if superheroes were just another job and you're the 911 operator. It's the kind of game that respects your brain. You're not just clicking through dialogue trees, you're actively piecing together a puzzle, and the game trusts you to figure it out. If you liked The Wolf Among Us or Disco Elysium's dialogue-first approach, Dispatch will be right up your alley. Ender Magnolia, Bloom in the Mist. If you're into Metroidvanias, Ender Magnolia Bloom in the Mist is absolutely an essential game. It's the sequel to Ender Lilies, which was already a gorgeous, melancholic little masterpiece. But Magnolia takes everything that worked and just expands it. The art style is hauntingly beautiful. This dark, gothic, almost watercolor aesthetic that makes every area feel like a painting you shouldn't be walking through. The story picks up decades after the events of the first game. There's this thing called the Death Rain that happened, and now the world is dealing with these corrupted artificial life forms. And once again, you're playing as Lilac, an attuner who can purify the blighted creatures around her, and you're basically going through this fallen kingdom trying to figure out what happened. The combat is still fluid. You've got a range of abilities, you're swapping between different attacks mid-combo, and the boss fights are challenging without feeling unfair. It's got that Souls-like rhythm where you have to learn patterns, but it's more forgiving than something like Hollow Knight. What really gets me about this one is the atmosphere. The music, the environmental storytelling, the way the world slowly reveals its secrets as you unlock new traversal abilities. It's a game that respects your time and your intelligence. It trusts you to figure things out, and when you do, it feels earned. Firewatch.
Hello? Whoever this is?
It's Henry, right?
Yeah.
I'm Delilah.
Yeah, that's what the guy said on the phone.
Firewatch is a game that's kind of tempting to take for granted, because on the surface, you're just a guy in a tower looking for smoke. But the thing about Firewatch is that it's actually one of the most human stories I've ever played. You're Henry, this guy who basically retreats into the Wyoming wilderness because his real life has become too much to handle. Honestly, I think we've all had that urge to just disappear into the woods when things get heavy, right? So you're out there, completely isolated with nothing but a handheld radio and the voice of your supervisor, Delilah, on the other end. The writing is just incredible. I mean, the way their relationship develops over that radio feels more real than most face-to-face dialogue in AAA games. It starts off light, almost like a summer job vibe, but then this mystery starts to bleed into the edges of the map. You start finding things that shouldn't be there. You get this feeling that you're being watched, and because you're so isolated, that paranoia really starts to sink in. It gives off this vibe of a slow burn thriller where the biggest threat might just be your own head. The art style helps too. Everything is bathed in these deep oranges and reds that make the forest look beautiful but also kind of suffocating. You're hiking through these canyons and climbing over rocks, and it's just you and your thoughts. Which is the kicker, because the game isn't really about the mystery at all. It's about why Henry is there in the first place. It's a bold choice to make a game where the ending doesn't give you a massive explosion or a boss fight, but it pays off. I've always appreciated how they didn't compromise on the grounded nature of the story. It's one of those just one more day type of situations where you just need to know what happens next. By the time the credits roll, you're left with this specific kind of quiet reflection. It's a game that is probably going to stay with you because it forces you to look at the things you're running away from. Just pure atmosphere. Makes sense why people still talk about it. It's worth the walk. Everyone always says they want to be a baby again because you have no responsibilities, but this game shows that having psychic powers while wearing a diaper is actually high stakes. Goodnight Universe is a first-person adventure where you play as a 6-month-old named Isaac, and the catch is that you have the brain of a full adult. You are stuck in a high chair trying to navigate weird family dynamics while discovering you can move objects with your mind. It is developed by the same people who made Before Your Eyes, so you already know the emotional damage is going to be real. And just like Before Your Eyes, this game can also use the webcam to track your facial expressions and where you are looking to trigger your psychic powers. Imagine trying to stay stealthy from a corporate tech group that wants to kidnap you for your brain, while you are also trying not to get caught by your mom for making a mess with your blocks. Now, the visuals are super vibrant and look like a high-quality animated movie, but the story gets pretty deep as it explores themes of belonging and family. Honestly, the gameplay feels fresh because you are interacting with the world from such a low perspective and everything looks huge. You might think playing as an infant would be boring, but trying to save your family from a shadowy organization using your literal eyeballs is a huge flex. So yeah, that is why it is worth checking out. Look, Hades 2 is one of the titan of last year. Supergiant Games somehow did it again. You'd think following up a game as perfect as the first Hades would be impossible. But Malinois's journey is just as addictive as Zagreus's was. Maybe more. The structure is familiar. You escape, you die, you upgrade, you go again. But the execution is cleaner, the systems are deeper, and on PS5, those particle effects are just chef's kiss. You're not fighting your way out of the underworld this time. You're diving into it. Malinois is Zagreus's sister, a witch trained in the arts of witchcraft and shadow manipulation. And she's trying to take down Kronos, the titan of time itself. The gods are back, the boons are back, but now there's a whole new layer with these elemental affinities and a tarot-like upgrade system called the Grasp that replaces the old mirror. What really gets me is the variety. You've got your main run, but there's also this side mode where you protect the crossroads, which is basically a mini horde mode that breaks up the loop nicely. And the weapon aspects are weirder this time, more experimental, the umbral flames, the sister blades. Each one changes how you approach combat in meaningful ways. The early access period was already incredible, and the full 1.0 release just cemented it. If you liked the first one, you're going to lose weeks to this. If you haven't played Hades at all, start here. It's the kind of game that defines a genre. Hollow Knight Silksong. This game had so much hype built up over 6 years that I honestly didn't think anything could live up to it, but Team Cherry went and did the thing. You're playing as Hornet now, not the Knight, and she moves completely different. Faster and more acrobatic. She's got this grace to her animations where she pivots before turning, just feels more fluid, which you need because Farloom is huge, bigger than Hallownest, and it's designed around her speed. You're doing these platforming sections that would have been impossible with the Knight. The combat is still punishing, don't let anyone tell you different. Enemies hit hard, bosses will wreck you, and you're dying a lot. But Hornet heals faster. She's got this silk thread mechanic that changes how you move around the environment. You're zipping through the air, hooking onto things, chaining together movements that feel almost like a rhythm game when you get it right. The story picks up with Hornet getting kidnapped and taken to Farloom. She escapes, obviously, and now she's trying to figure out what's going on in this new kingdom. There's a whole faction system with quests now. You're not just wandering aimlessly. You've got direction if you want it, but you can also just explore. And the world is packed. There's this place called Greymoor that's the biggest area Team Cherry's ever designed. You're finding breakable walls, hidden upgrades, NPCs with their own stories. One of my favorites is this pilgrim bug named Sherma, who just walks around banging a drum and singing about how excited she is to get to the Citadel. She's pure joy in an otherwise bleak world. The music is incredible again. Christopher Larkin came back, and the title theme is this haunting harp piece that just sits with you. And the difficulty discourse is real. Some people think it's too hard, but it's fair. You're learning patterns, building muscle memory, earning every victory. There's a 2-currency system now too. Rosaries for buying stuff, shell shards for crafting and repairing gear. Adds a resource management layer that wasn't there before. It's the kind of sequel that takes everything that worked in the original and just adds more. More movement, more combat depth, more world to lose yourself in. And yeah, it made my fingers hurt. Worth it. Madison. If you're looking for that specific kind of high-tension horror where the game is basically trying to give you a heart attack every 30 seconds, this is the one. It's got probably the highest scare per minute ratio of any modern horror title on the PS5. You're playing as this kid named Luca, and honestly, the game starts in the worst way possible. You wake up in a dark room with blood on your hands while your dad is screaming at you through a locked door. Turns out, you're being possessed by the spirit of a serial killer named Madison Hale, and she's using you to finish some gruesome ritual she started decades ago. The whole vibe is very PT, where the house you're in isn't just a setting, it's alive. You'll walk through a door, turn around, and the entire hallway has just vanished. It's deeply disorienting in the best way. Your only real tool is this old instant camera you got for your birthday, which sounds like a gimmick, but it's the heart of the whole experience. You aren't just taking pictures for the hell of it, you're using the flash to see things that aren't there, or to trigger shifts in reality. There's something so stressful about snapping a photo in a pitch black room, then waiting for the Polaroid to develop in your hand while you pray nothing is standing right in front of you. And the puzzles are actually another high point here. They aren't just find a key, open a door type of situations. They're genuinely clever and require you to actually pay attention to the environment and the lore you're uncovering through these creepy cassette tapes. I mean, the Blue Knees section specifically is some of the most effective horror I've played in years. It's become a bit of a cult classic for a reason. Because even when the puzzles get a little obscure, the atmosphere is so thick and the scares are so well-timed that you just can't look away. It's the kind of game that makes you regret playing with headphones on. So yeah, be sure to check this one as well. Mio, Memories in Orbit.
It grew boundless from eye to heart.
What would you do if you woke up alone on a space station with nothing but fragmented memories pointing you toward what happened? That's the situation Mio is dropped into, and the game uses that mystery as the engine that keeps pulling you forward through every section. It's a puzzle platformer set in a beautifully weird sci-fi environment, and the level design is built around exploring and figuring out how all the pieces connect rather than just moving from A to B. Mio has this quiet, melancholy vibe that plays really well against the loneliness of drifting through an empty orbital station, and the atmosphere does a lot of the emotional heavy lifting. The gameplay mechanics are tied into the memory theme too, so recovering fragments actually unlocks new abilities and changes how you interact with the environment around you. Honestly though, the pacing is where the game really earns it because it gives you room to breathe and figure things out without constantly holding your hand. It's the kind of game you play with headphones on while the rest of the world stays on mute. Neva. Everything about Neva feels like a moving painting because it comes from the same team that made Gris. You start off as Alba, who is bonded to this majestic wolf cub, and you both have to navigate a world that is literally rotting away. The combat is surprisingly tight and snappy, which is great since the platforming requires some pretty precise timing. Honestly, the way the wolf grows up throughout the game actually changes how you play and tackle different puzzles. Plus, the relationship between the two characters makes every boss fight feel personal rather than just a challenge to overcome. You spend a lot of time double jumping and dashing through these gorgeous environments that look peaceful until the shadow monsters show up. The truth is that the level design uses the wolf's evolution to keep the mechanics fresh, so you never feel like you're just doing the same loops. And yeah, the platforming gets pretty intense later on when the world starts falling apart under your feet. It's wild how they manage to make the movement feel so fluid while telling a story that doesn't need a single line of dialogue. You basically have to protect your companion while it learns to defend itself against the decay. What's wild is how the colors shift based on the emotional weight of the scene, which helps you stay locked into the vibe. Most of the time, you are just trying to find a safe path through the chaos, but the platforming challenges really test your reflexes. This means that you cannot just spam buttons because the timing on your air dashes is crucial for survival. Anyway, the ending is going to stay with you way after you put the controller down. You should definitely check this out if you want a game that looks as good as it plays. Ninja Gaiden Ragebound. So picture a world where pixel art meets one of the most brutal combat you have ever seen on a handheld. This side-scrolling adventure puts you in the shoes of a young ninja named Kenji who has to defend his village from demons. Ryu Hayabusa is away on a mission in America, so it is up to you to step up and handle the invasion. The combat is very fast, and you can switch between Kenji and a deadly assassin named Kumori at any time, meaning you can use Kenji for up-close sword fighting, and then swap to Kumori to snipe enemies with kunai from a distance. The thing is that their souls are literally fused together, which gives you access to some insane power-ups. You can summon giant spider weapons and use ninja magic to wipe out entire screens of monsters. Also, though, the platforming is very technical because you have to use a move to bounce off projectiles. What's wild is how the game rewards you for being aggressive by giving you a hypercharged state that one-shots most mobs. Look, you will be exploring branching paths that lead to secret dimensions full of even tougher challenges. The truth is that the boss fights are some of the most creative encounters in the entire series. On top of that, the animations are incredibly smooth and make every slash feel like it has real weight. And believe it or not, the story is actually pretty engaging as you try to stop the Demon Lord from crossing over. You will need to master the parry timing if you want to get a high rank on the harder difficulty levels. In other words, this is a love letter to the classic NES titles, but with the depth of a modern fighter. Luto. Since it finally launched last summer, this thing has basically become the new visage for anyone who likes that specific flavor of suffocating domestic horror. It's a game that's very tempting to take for granted because we've seen so many PT clones over the years, but Luto is doing something way more psychological. You're trapped in a house that's essentially a manifestation of grief and loss, and it's easily the best walking sim style horror we've got on the system. The thing that really works for me is how it handles its scares. Instead of just jumping out at you, it uses these bedsheet ghosts that just stand there. It's deeply unsettling because you know something is under the cloth, but you never quite see what it is. Right, so the house starts shifting and looping in ways that genuinely make you look twice at your own furniture when you turn the lights off. I mean, you'll walk through a door you've been through 10 times, and suddenly you're in a completely different room that feels like a forgotten memory. The biggest hurdle with talking about Luto is trying not to spoil the meta elements, because there's this narrator that actually reacts to what you're doing, sometimes even making snide remarks if you pause too much. It's one of those just one more door type of situations where you're terrified to move forward, but you have to know what's happening. Honestly, the way it tackles themes like depression and mourning is just heavy. It's not just about being scared, it's about that weight in your chest that doesn't go away. Now, this game is kind of a slow burn experience for sure, but if you want a game that gets under your skin and stays there, this is the one. Just pure atmospheric dread. Planet of Lana II.
Oh.
If you thought the first game was a vibe, then this sequel is going to absolutely blow your mind with its upgraded visuals. You are back on the planet Novo playing as an older and much more agile Lana who is still traveling with her cat-like buddy Mui. The story kicks off when a new mystery starts bubbling up from the planet's depths, and a strange threat begins to tear the local tribes apart. Honestly, the hand-painted environments look even better this time around, and every screen feels like a piece of high-end concept art. What's interesting is how the puzzles are built directly into the nature of the world, so you never feel like you are just hitting switches for no reason. You have to use Mui to reach high ledges or distract mechanical guards while you sneak through the tall grass. The movement is way more fluid now because Lana can wall jump and use her momentum to clear massive gaps that would have been impossible before. Plus, the bond between the two characters is still the heart of the experience, and it makes every narrow escape feel super intense. The truth is that the orchestral soundtrack does a lot of the heavy lifting for the storytelling since there is no actual dialogue. You will spend a lot of time exploring frozen mountains and deep underwater ruins while trying to figure out where your partner actually came from. Even so, the difficulty stays pretty fair because the game focuses more on your observation skills than on punishing your reflexes, meaning you can really take your time to soak in the atmosphere between the high-stakes chase sequences. It is a standalone story, so you do not even need to have played the original to understand why you are running for your life. Anyway, this is a must-play for anyone who wants a cinematic experience that feels like a playable animated movie. Subnautica. Deep sea exploration is usually a secondary feature in most games, but Subnautica makes the entire world an alien ocean that wants to eat you. You are the lone survivor of a spaceship crash, and you have to build a base and upgrade your equipment to find a way off the planet. The atmosphere is incredible because it goes from a bright and colorful coral reef to a pitch-black abyss filled with giant leviathans in a matter of seconds. In a weird way, it is a horror game disguised as a survival craft game because the sounds of the ocean are genuinely unsettling when you are low on oxygen. So then you find yourself constantly balancing the need for resources with the fear of what is hiding in the kelp forests around you. Kind of the opposite of most open worlds, you are exploring vertically, which adds a whole new dimension to how you navigate the map. The story is told through PDA logs and environmental clues, which makes the mystery feel much more rewarding to solve on your own. It is a unique experience that proves you do not need a massive map full of icons to make a world feel alive and dangerous. Super Meat Boy 3D. Maybe you think you are good at video games, but this title is here to prove you wrong immediately. The developers finally took the red cube into the third dimension, and honestly, it is just as punishing as the original. You are still trying to save Bandage Girl from the jerk Dr. Fetus while navigating through a literal nightmare of buzzsaws. You will die hundreds of times in every single zone, and that's why the instant respawn is so important. What's wild is how the levels show all your failed attempts at once after you finally reach the goal. You can wall run and dash in midair now to clear the massive gaps in the industrial ruins. The thing is that the controls are so tight that you can never blame the game for your mistakes. Also though, you have to find hidden bandages in every stage to unlock secret characters and dark world levels. Imagine trying to jump between moving saw blades while a laser is chasing you from behind. So yeah, you will probably be screaming at your monitor, but in a way that makes you want to try one more time. The truth is that the 3D depth makes the platforming feel fresh even if the core loop is the same. On top of that, the soundtrack is a banger that keeps your heart rate high while you suffer. Plus, the bosses are massive and require you to memorize their patterns perfectly to survive. It is a test of pure skill and patience that rewards you with the best feeling in gaming when you win. Sword of the Sea. So this one is from Giant Squid, same team that gave us Abzu and the Pathless. So you already know you're in for something that looks like a moving painting. But here's what's wild. It's not just a walking simulator with pretty visuals. You're on this hoverboard sword thing, carving through these massive desert landscapes like you're in a skate park designed by nature. The game calls it a hover sword, and it moves like a snowboard and a surfboard all at once. It's one of those games where the movement itself is the point. You're not just going from point A to point B. You're flowing. You're pulling off tricks, catching air off these crumbling ruins, and the more you move, the more the world around you changes. Sand dunes literally transform into shimmering oceans as you ride through them. That's not just a visual trick, it's the whole gameplay loop. You're resurrecting an ancient sea just by surfing across the desert. The vibe is meditative, but also kind of exhilarating at the same time. Austin Wintory did the score again, so expect that same emotional swell you felt in Journey. And the best part? It hit PS Plus day one. So if you've got a subscription, you've got no excuse not to try this. It's the kind of game that reminds you why you fell in love with indie titles in the first place. No bloat, no map icons, just pure, intentional artistry wrapped around a movement system that feels incredible under your fingers. Tales of Iron 2, Whiskers of Winter. So I heard you're a Souls fan, right? This one is right in your lane. The first game was already a solid little indie Souls-like with rats and swords, but the sequel expands everything. The world is bigger, the combat is more brutal, and the story is fully narrated by Doug Cockle. You know, Geralt's voice. So right away, you've got that deep, gravelly voice telling you about your rat kingdom being threatened by these giant flying beasts called the Dark Wings. And this time, you're playing as Arlo, the young heir to this northern wasteland, and you're basically trying to unite the clans after everything goes sideways. The combat is fast, it's challenging, and it's all about timing your parries and dodges. You've got dodge rolls, parry bashes, and executions that are just brutal to watch. And what I like about this one is the variety. You can go in with a spear for reach, a mace for heavy hits, or a bow for ranged stuff. And there are these giant beast hunt side quests where you track down legendary monsters for rare crafting materials. The boss fights are also genuinely tough. You're not just mashing buttons and hoping for the best. You have to learn patterns, adapt your loadout, and actually think about what you're doing. In addition, you get to build up your settlement. You can also upgrade the smithy, unlock better meals, and expand your options. It adds that layer of progression that makes the whole thing feel meaningful. If you liked the first one, you're going to love this. If you haven't played the first one, you can jump in here just fine. The Midnight Walk. The Midnight Walk is one of those games where I just kept saying, how did they do this out loud while playing? Because the entire world was handcrafted in actual clay, like real physical clay. Then they scanned it into the game using just phone cameras. The developers literally walked around their office showing off these little sculpted figures they made by hand, and that's the game you're playing. It's a first-person horror puzzle game with this stop-motion aesthetic that feels like you're inside a Leica film. You know, Coraline, Kubo, that vibe. But it's dark. You play as this character called the Burnt One, and you're walking through this twisted landscape with a little companion named Potboy, who's basically a walking pot with a face who shoots embers to light things for you. The developers call it cozy horror, which sounds like nonsense until you experience it. Because it is creepy, but there's also something nostalgic and almost comforting about the clay textures and the weird, misshapen characters. There's a dedicated button to close your eyes. You can literally blink to reveal secrets or just will away terrifying monsters like a kid hiding under the covers. Later in the game, you get this matchstick gun that lets you light things from a distance, and the levels get genuinely tense. Enemies called Grinners will chase you down, and their kill animation is apparently horrifying. It's the kind of experience that sticks with you not because it's scary, but because it's unlike anything else you've played. The Rogue Prince of Persia. You probably remember the classic Prince of Persia games for the platforming, but this new roguelite take is a completely different beast. The Rogue Prince of Persia takes that classic wall running we all love and throws it into a fast-paced loop where every death sends you back to the start. Imagine you are trying to save the capital city from a massive Hun invasion, but you have a magical trinket that lets you come back to life. The developers behind Dead Cells worked on this so the movement feels incredibly responsive and satisfying right out of the gate. You spend a lot of time chaining wall runs and acrobatic leaps to avoid traps while looking for the best loot. And honestly, the procedural levels keep the platforming fresh because you never know exactly where the next spike pit will be. Then again, the combat is just as important as the jumping because you have to kick enemies into walls to survive. The thing is that the game rewards you for being aggressive and staying in the air as much as possible. So yeah, you will find yourself dying a lot, but each run unlocks new weapons that make the next attempt a bit easier. Basically, the whole vibe is about finding your flow state while dodging purple fire and soldiers. What's wild is how the environment changes slightly between runs to keep you on your toes. Also though, the art style is super colorful and stylized, which makes the fast action easy to track. Look, the platforming challenges here are definitely more about speed and momentum than just precision. This means that you really have to master the wall climbing mechanics to reach the hidden areas. This is basically the perfect game for anyone who wants a challenge that doesn't feel unfair. What Remains of Edith Finch.
The woods around the house have always been uncomfortably silent. As if they're about to say something, but never do.
So this one got that specific kind of vibe that just sticks with you long after you're done. Like you didn't just play a game, you experienced someone's entire family history in one sitting. The thing about this one is how it tells its story through these small, self-contained moments. So you're not just walking around a house, you're stepping into these little stories, each one completely different from the last. One minute you're a kid with this wild imagination, the next you're in something that feels way darker than it should, which honestly keeps you on edge the whole time. And the way it uses gameplay to tell those stories is kind of genius. It's never complicated, but it always feels intentional. You know that feeling when a game trusts you to just get it? That's this game. It doesn't over-explain anything. It just lets you sit with what's happening. And because of that, some of these moments hit way harder than you expect. I'll be honest, there are parts here that just linger. Not because they're shocking, but because they feel weirdly personal. It's short, yeah. You can finish it in a few hours, but that doesn't even matter because every single second feels like it has a purpose. There's no filler here, no wasted space, just story after story, each one building this bigger picture of a family that feels cursed. And yet there's something strangely beautiful about it too. Like it's tragic but also kind of peaceful in a weird way. That balance is hard to pull off. Most games either go full dark or try to soften the blow. This one just sits right in the middle, and it works. By the end, you're not really thinking about gameplay anymore. You're just thinking about everything you just saw, which is kind of the point. Yooka-Replaylee. Imagine taking a colorful N64 collectathon and giving it a total overhaul so it actually plays like a modern masterpiece. This game is a complete reimagining of the duo's first outing, and it fixes pretty much every issue fans had with the original version. You control a chameleon named Yooka and a bat named Laylee as they try to stop a greedy corporate bee from stealing all the world's books. The biggest change is that the levels are fully open from the start, so you do not have to wait to unlock the cool parts of the map. And yeah, the camera system is actually good now, which makes navigating the massive 3D environments way less of a headache. You spend your time hunting for golden pages by completing races, and solving environmental puzzles for the local NPCs. Also, you can collect a new currency to buy tonics that change how the game looks, or how the physics work in real time. The platforming feels much tighter, because the moveset has been polished to make jumping and gliding feel more responsive than ever. For instance, the reptile roll is a great way to gain speed and knock enemies out of your path while you explore the jungle. The truth is that the world is packed with so many secrets that you will probably spend hours just trying to find every single feather and coin. Here is the kicker, because the entire soundtrack was re-recorded by a full orchestra to give the music a much more epic feel. Still, the humor is just as goofy as it always was, and you will run into plenty of weird characters who need your help. You are basically going on a massive treasure hunt that feels like a love letter to the golden age of 3D platformers. This is the definitive way to experience this adventure, and it proves that the mascot platformer genre is still alive and kicking.